All right, good morning, good morning, good morning. And this your girl Tiffany. I'm here recording live this morning on today's date is July the 29th, Thursday of 2021. And today I want to do this topic about Charlotte L. Brown regarding to Black history and whatnot. So I was supposed to did this topic I think it was supposed to be on Tuesday, but I didn't get a chance to do so because I wasn't feeling too well. So now I'm here. So yes, somebody have brought this person's name up to me, and I had to look up some information on this individual. So this is the information about Charlotte L. Brown. Charlotte L. Brown was a civil rights leader, and not only was she a civil rights leader, but she was also an educator as well. So, with that being said, I'm going into some information regarding to her history, her background, and not only that, I'm also going to be sharing some sources. I'm going to be sharing some sources afterwards where people can look up more information. So, as you can see, that's all I do here on the channel is share information with people to enlighten them about history and all those great things. All right. So if y'all excuse me, I'm still kind of like, I just woke up, but I'm just still trying to get all the way woke. But anyways, let me go ahead and get started. All right. So what I want to share, of course, is this article from Wiki1. Yep. So right here on the article of Wiki1, according to this information, who was Charlotte L. Brown? So Charlotte L. Brown was an American educator and civil rights activist who was one of the first to legally challenge racial segregation in the United States when she filed a lawsuit against a streetcar company in San Francisco in the 1860s after she was forcibly removed from a segregated streetcar. Now, it says she was born in Maryland in 1839, the daughter of James E. Brown, who was born enslaved, and Charlotte Brown, a free seamstress. The elder Charlotte Brown purchased her husband freedom, and in 1850 they were living as free people of color in Baltimore, Maryland, with several children, including Charlotte. Sometime between 1850 and 1860, they moved their family to San Francisco, which was booming as a result of the California gold rush, and became a part of that city's burgeoning black middle class. The black population of the city at the time was 1,176 people, or about 2%. In San Francisco, James E. Brown ran a livery stable, was a partner in the black newspaper Mirror of the Times, an anti-slavery crusader, and a member of the San Francisco Literary Society, a discussion and debate group for prominent African American men. In 1855, Charlotte was the teenage bridesmaid at the San Francisco wedding of her sister Margaret, who married the wealthy black entrepreneur George Washington Dennis. So let's look at what's the California gold rush. All right. As you can see, this is like some type of article. It says a new magnificent clipper for San Francisco Merchants Express line of clipper ships, loading none but first class vessel and regularly dispatching the great number, the splendid new out and out clipper ship. Okay, so the California Gold Rush, which started from 1848 to 1855, was a gold rush that began on January 24, 1848. And it says when gold was found by James W. Marshall at Shutter's Mill in Coloma, California, the news of gold brought approximately 300,000 people to California from the rest of the United States and abroad. The sudden influx of gold into the money supplies re, re, reinvigorate the American economy, and the sudden population increase allowed California to go rapidly to the statehood. In the Compromise of 1850, the gold rush had severe effects on Native Californians and accelerated the Native Americans' population decline from disease, starvation, and the California genocide. So, as you can see, this was to pretty much stimulate the economy of California. And when gold was found there was gold that was found in California. Um, of course, they helped stimulate the economy and stimulate the California population. So where a lot of people migrated over to California. All right. And it says the effect of the gold rush was substantial. Whole indigenous society were attacked and pushed off their lands by the gold seekers called 49ers. Isn't that interesting that there's a football team called San Francisco 49ers, right? You probably wonder, well, where the name 49ers come from. But anyways, referring to the 1849, the peak year for gold rush immigration outside of California, the first to arrive were from Oregon, the Sandwich Islands, and Latin America in the late 1848. Of the approximately 300,000 people who came to California during the gold rush, about half arrived by sea and half came overland on the California Trail and the Gila River Trail. 49ers often faced substantial hardships on the trip. While most of the newly arrived were Americans, the gold rush attracted thousands from Latin America, Europe, Australia, and China. Agriculture and ranching expanded throughout the state to meet the needs of the settlers. San Francisco grew from a small settlement of about 200 residents in 1846 to a boom town of about 36,000 by 1852. Roads, churches, schools, and other towns were built throughout California. In 1849, a state constitution was written. The new constitution was adopted by referendum vote, and the future state's interim first governor and legislature were chosen. In September 1850, California became a state. All right, so I won't go any further, but just give a general idea of what the gold rush was. So with that being said, these gold seekers, they were digging up golds, and when they found out there was golds in California, it was like, oh my God, what a magnificent thing. So now, because if you know, gold is worth money, and of course gold is money. So when you find gold, it's like you finding wealth. So basically they thought they found wealth in California. They was like, oh, we found some golds on the ground. And when people start finding out that, oh, there's gold out there, that's when California economy start booming. That's when the population start growing, and etc. And San Francisco went from being a small town to the town that it is today, to being one of the largest cities in California. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and continue. So let's go back and let's look at the streetcar incident. So this is how it all started for Charlotte Brown. So at 8 p.m. on April 17, 1863, Charlotte Brown took a seat on a horse-drawn streetcar 1 block from her home on Filbert Street in San Francisco. She was on her way to see her doctor. The streetcar was owned by Omnibus Railroad Company. When the streetcar conductor approached her and asked her to leave, Brown said she had a right to ride and had no intention on leaving the car. In her court testimony, she stated, the conductor went around and collected tickets, and when he came to me, I handed him my tickets and he refused to take it. It was one of the omnibus railroad tickets that I had purchased of them previous to that time. He replied that colored persons were not allowed to ride. I told him I had been in the habit of riding ever since the cars had been running. I answered that I had a great ways to go and I was later than I ought to be. The conductor, Thomas Dennison, asked her several times to leave, and each time she refused. Finally, when a white woman objected to her presence, he grabbed her by the arm and escorted her off the car. All right, so here's the case right here. Her father, James E. Brown, hired attorney W.C. Burnett, and Charlie Brown brought a lawsuit against the Omnibus Railroad Company for $200. African Americans had just won the right to testify against whites that same year. The Omnibus Railroad argued that its conductor's action was justified because racial segregation protected white women and children who might be fearful and repulsed by riding in the same car as African Americans. It was justified because racial segregation protected white women and children who might be fearful and repulsed by riding in the same car as African Americans. Let me go ahead. Hey, peace, Brother Gullah. How you doing? So, this whole segregation thing was supposed to protect white women and children that might be fearful of riding with African Americans. So, in other words, they seen African Americans as subhumans, more like animals, savages. In that nutshell, right? That's interesting, but let me go ahead and continue. Let's see what else I can find. Let me see what else. All right, so it says Brown won her case, presided over by Judge Krause, but the jury only awarded her $25. The conductor, Dennison, was convicted in criminal court of assault and battery against Brown. Brown's civil case was tied up in appeals for the next 2 years. In one retrial, the jury awarded Brown only 5 cents, the price of the streetcar ticket. Meanwhile, just 3 days after the first trial, Brown was ejected from yet another streetcar and brought a second suit against Omnibus, this time for $3,000. Finally, in October 1864, her case was tried in a higher court. In his judgment of October the 5th, 1864, Judge Orville C. Pratt of the 12th District Court upheld the earlier verdict in favor of Brown, ruling that excluding passengers from streetcars because of their race was illegal. He had no desire, he said in his rulings, to perpetuate a relic of barbarism. Perpetuate a relic of barbarism. Wow, that's very unexpected for a judge to say. Perpetuate a relic of barbarism. Who would ever thought a judge would say that at that time period, during a high tension of racism? Actually, he wasn't going for the bullshit. That's what he was saying. All right. But he went on to say, it has been already quite too long tolerated by the dominant race to see with indifference the Negro or mulatto treated as a beaut, insulted, wronged, enslaved, made to wear a yoke to tremble before white men, to serve him as a tool, to hold property and life at his will, to surrender to him his intellect and conscience, and to seal his lips and belie his thought through dread of the white man's power, Judge Pratt stated. And this the judge right here, by the way. Okay. And it says, in January of 1865, a jury awarded Brown $500. The Omnibus Railroad Company appealed the verdict, but was refused another trial. Then it goes on to talk about the public reaction. After the first trial, the black-owned newspaper, the Pacific Appeal, noted that the verdict in her favor established the right by law of colored persons to ride in such conveyance. While the law recognizes and gives us the right to ride in such conveyance, the editorial continued, there are a certain number of the employees of this company who, if a colored person attempts to cross the street while their car is passing, are seized with a sudden fit of negrophobia, which is generally manifested by pulling their alarm bell violently as if some danger was imminent. So afraid are they that some other of our respectable females might attempt to exercise the right that Miss Brown has just won. So long as we have law, justice, and right on our side, we want no pity. And says Judge Pratt's 1864 ruling was derived in an editorial cartoon by a local white-owned newspaper that showed blacks and white riding side by side. Using a racial epithet, it accused Pratt of being partial to African Americans and questioned whether the light-skinned Brown was really black or just filling suit for the monetary award. A white editor of the Sacramento Daily Union, on the other hand, said of Pratt's decision, his argument is looted and his decision, we believe, chimes in with the sentiment of the people. So the judge had received criticism from one white newspaper saying that, oh, he just sided with the Negroes. And they used to make fun of white people who, who supported African Americans as far as their rights, their civil rights. They used to call them Negro lovers. And then another newspaper said, well, pretty much it was justifiable. It was to give rights to other people. Now, this is the start of the earliest form of civil right. Before the civil right of 1965, there was a civil right of, let me find out what year was that. All right, that was the civil right of 1866. So that was around that time period of 1866. Okay, but not a lot of people don't know about civil rights of 1866. It was pretty much the same thing as the civil rights at 1965, but it was only different is the time period. That was the only difference. They was like 100 years apart from each other, but it was the same thing. So this is the first civil right act that took place. However, it didn't last very long until another 100 years later. Hello, Mr. Sir Anthony. Good morning. Good morning. It's a long time. I hope everything going well with you. Thank you for coming through. Thank you for coming through. All right. So let me go ahead and continue. And it says the Charlotte Brown case paved the way for other cases brought by San Francisco African Americans like William Bowen and Mary Ellen Pleasant that challenged the whites-only practices of the privately owned streetcars. In 1893, streetcar segregation was officially outlawed on statewide streetcars by the California legislature. After Charlotte Brown won her case, Senator Charles Sumner invoked the case in Congress as setting an important proceeding for racial equality when he argued in favor of integrating streetcars in the nation's capital. All right. So go on, talk about her later life. In 1867, Charlotte Brown opened a school for young children at 10 Scotland Street in San Francisco, offering all the branches of primary education as well as music and embroidery. In 1874, she married James Henry Riker, another prominent African American activist of San Francisco who had worked as a lived-in personal servant to William Chapman Waston and was employed as a steward at the Palace Hotel during their marriage. Riker, along with Brown's father, was one of the organizers of 1865 California State Convention of Colored Citizens. The society pages of the Black newspaper, The Elevator, printed an announcement in 1877 of a surprise party for a fellow steward at the Palace Hotel that was given by Charlotte and James H. Riker in their residence on 1018 Powell Street in San Francisco. Little is known about Charlotte Riker's life after that. All right. So here's the historical context. Well, let's see what they're talking about here on the historical context. The Charlotte Brown lawsuit was one of the first of several actions that were brought by Black activists in both southern and northern cities. All right, so the Charlotte Brown lawsuit was one of the first of several actions that were brought by Black activists in both southern and northern cities throughout the United States to protest exclusion and segregation on public transportation in the 19th and 20th centuries. In 1854, Elizabeth Jennings successfully filed suit against the Third Avenue Railway Company in New York City after she had been ejected from a streetcar there because of her skin color. In Philadelphia, in 1865, a Mrs. Derry won a civil suit and $50 in damages after a streetcar conductor threw her off the bus and kicked her when she and a group of women were returning from tending to the Civil War soldiers. Sojourner Truth, Ida B. Wells, and Francis Watkin Parkers also lobbied actively for streetcar integration after being refused ridership on streetcars in Washington, D.C., Memphis, and Pennsylvania. And it says those streetcars in the North were largely desegregated by the end of the 19th century. Segregation on public transportation became the official policy in many cities of the South. In the 20th century, women like Irene Morgan and Mary Louise Smith continued to battle segregation on public transportation. In 1954, Rosa Parks challenged the practice in Montgomery, Alabama, launching a citywide bus boycott and helping to start the civil rights movement of the 1950s and 60s. Now, there was another person that came before Rosa Parks. She was from the same state as Rosa Parks. However, she didn't gain that kind of recognition only because she was young and she was pregnant. And the NAACP said, well, we can't put that out there because that's not going to be a good look or image. Anyways, it says in African-American women confront the West, scholars Quinter Taylor and Shirley Ann Wilson Moore analyzed the Charlotte Brown case and other 19th century streetcar desegregation lawsuit brought by Black women as they relate historically to both race and gender. They noted that it was frequently women who filed these lawsuits because of prevailing ideas of public versus private space and white views of Black gender roles. Activist Black men were keenly aware of the power of Black women to go where they as men could not. They write, relying on the wedge of gender, Black women's lawsuit against streetcar companies ultimately assured the right to travel of Blacks generally. The declaration of law was a general one that applied not simply to Charlotte Brown or to Mary Pleasant, but to all Blacks as well. All right, so that's the end of it. As you can see, you can go down here to find more information. Go to the further reading at the bottom, and you will see the reference here at the bottom as well. All right, so hello, peace to everybody in the chat. Peace to you, brother Chauncey. I hope everything's going well with you, brother. All right, so right here, I have some sources, and I'm not going to really get into all the sources, but this one is called Civil Rights Protests and Anti-Slavery Activism in San Francisco, 1850 to 1865 by Albert S. Buzzard, and you can find this on nps.gov. nps.gov. All right. So let me see if I can scroll down to the bottom. All right, so well, obviously I can't. But anyways, yeah, the website is nps.gov, and you can find out more information. It's called Civil Rights, Racial Protests and Anti-Slavery Activism in San Francisco, 1850 to 1865 by Albert S. Buzzard, Broussard. Okay. That's that information. All right, so then you can check out another information here is All Roads Lead to San Francisco, Black Californian Networks of Community and the Struggle for Equality, 1849 to 1877 by Anshan Celeste Han, BA at Seoul National University of 2009, MA Brown University 2010. So this person wrote a dissertation, okay? And the dissertation came out in May of 2015. So when you write a dissertation, it's like you write a book, actually. So as you can see, anybody that's going for a PhD, they have to write a dissertation. Basically, it's like writing a book. You know, it's like a book before the book come out. And there's a lot of dissertation that happen to be like one of the top selling books, but there's some that haven't became books. All right. But yeah, this one is called All Roads Lead to San Francisco, Black Californian Networks of Community and the Struggle for Equality, 1849 to 1877. All right. So I'm going to zoom that up again so you guys can see. And it's on repository.library.brown.edu. Repository.library.brown.edu. All right, so I'm just going to leave this up here. All right, then. All right, so that's all I have for today. I thank you guys for coming in and watching. For those of you that are watching, make sure you subscribe to my channel. Make sure you check out the contents on there and hit the notification bell, and also share this channel. And that's it. So with that being said, may peace and power and elevation be to all of you out there. Again, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will reconnect with you all later. All right, so this is your girl Tiffany, and I'm logging off. All right, peace.